This video is dedicated to a comparison between monotheist gods and Zeus. And let me start by noting two things that are important. First of all, it's disturbing to know that the main god of the Hellenistic world disappeared, slowly, but then didn't leave any traces behind him, and that is Zeus. Second thing that, and this is I will be discussing more in detail in this video, is the status of Zeus. Zeus as a god is not or has nothing common or similar or shared with any of the monotheistic gods. In fact, I do not agree with Nietzsche when he puts Dionysus and Apollon at the top of the birth of the tragedy. I think the real tragedy is the invention of Zeus. Not exactly in the sense of a tragedy, but it's really an anti-hero, an anti-god. Zeus was the anti-god. And it's really impressive to know that Greeks worshipped this anti-god. What does it mean? For monotheism, usually their god is, first of all, he has the capacity of creating ex nihilo, that's for monotheistic gods, but also he can take away that life anytime he wants, and in between he rules the world and is really very active and present on a daily basis. The god of, especially in Islam, Allah is present in every move and everything we do. From the moment we wake up till the moment we die, and even after we die, he's there also for the resurrection, he's there. Now let's compare this to the god of the Greeks, and namely Zeus. Zeus didn't create. He did not create anything. He fought some wars later against the Titans, but he didn't create anything. He actually had a coup d'etat against his father, who himself had a coup d'etat against his own father, became somehow the master god, and then we can imagine that he was ruling the world from somewhere up high. Now the point here is not about him, what he was doing, overseeing the world is something really vague. We know he made some intervention, but most of his intervention weren't really practical, and we will see that. His intervention weren't always to the benefit of mankind or even to himself. But anyway, he made few interventions. But the most part about Zeus as a god is that he was the most human of all gods ever. The guy cheats, lies, deceives, you name it. Every almost evil thing that you can think of, Zeus did it at one point or another. Either to flirt with women or just because he was angry that people are stealing stuff from him. We can definitely imagine that this god was not as powerful as monotheistic gods, somehow, but he really had a lot of flaws, and his system wasn't working very well and all the time. And we know that from various examples, Prometheus, Sisyphus, and even Atlas. All of these creatures stole something or another from Zeus: knowledge, fire, for Sisyphus basically he chained death. I mean, Sisyphus really tricked Thanatos, who came to put him in chain, and instead it's Sisyphus who put Thanatos in chain and stopped death altogether. Atlas too, he was really tricked with this apple, with this golden apple, but then by the end he ended up doing it, and it was actually a punishment too. So these characters really stole something from Zeus. Now what is important here is to note that Zeus's power over the world was weak. He wasn't capable of running the show as we can imagine, or as Muslim or Jews or even Christian think of God. We think of God as omnipresent, capable of everything, nothing can skip, or there are no cracks there. In the power of especially Allah, there are no cracks. And this is the model of a monotheistic God who rules the show or runs the show with no flaws. Zeus is the opposite. Zeus has no control really over his realm. He has so many problems, so many things go missing almost on a regular basis. We are left with poets, which is really extremely creative, who gave us like an idea of the punishment that Zeus was. I mean, the stone for Sisyphus is definitely really beautiful, even for Atlas, holding, I mean, the globe on his shoulder, and it's really like a joke. I mean, Hercules wanted the golden apple, back and forth with Atlas, and then Hercules said to Atlas, please, can you hold the globe for me so I can put a pad on my shoulder in order to hold the globe? And Atlas, like a dummy, say yes, he holds the globe, and then Hercules takes the golden apple to Zeus and leave Atlas holding the globe for the rest of his entire life. That's beautiful, actually, about tricking. I mean, we do not, if you are in a monotheistic kind of environment, you won't think ever of your God as that stupid or that silly. Now, Zeus, yes, it's an environment that he created around himself, or that poets and everybody else created around this God, Zeus. As I said, he tricks, cheats, rapes, lies, and then he has like some kind of a temper sometimes of punishing, like I mean, I wish people can read or reread the punishment of Echo. I mean, he wasn't having an affair, going to Earth for his affair, this is Zeus, and then Hera found out, his wife, and said, like, I'm gonna go after him this time and get him red-handed. And Zeus was really, of course, after his affair, and I mean, Echo covered up for him and came up with the story, and Hera now, it's Hera also who's doing the same job, punished Echo by making her say repeat only the last word. And when Narcissus fell in love with Echo and he was telling her like how much I missed you, and she repeats after him, miss you, oh my love, I want to see you, and it was like that. It was almost, I mean, Narcissus felt like it was a monologue, like talking to himself. So he said, okay, in this case, I better fall in love with myself, and Narcissus really moved on and started loving himself, because that's what he was doing. Whatever he was saying, Echo, um, the object of his love, was not really doing anything for him. She was just repeating the last word, and that was a punishment by Hera. So you can see this whole kind of setup that we have for these gods, and especially for Zeus. The setup for Zeus is that he's a human. He has all the faults of any human, and in fact he has them exaggerated and visible. So Zeus has no, as I said, he made like some wars against the Titans with other gods, but other than that he was leading a council up in the sky, and that's about it, watching things happening and etc. So he wasn't really an active god. As I said, he was also a crook and a thief, and he had many other problems. Plus he had a temper when he was punishing. I mean, the punishment of Sisyphus is definitely an extremely creative punishment, but it also makes no sense for a god to do that. And then you wonder, I mean, this whole setup also was independent from Zeus. So it wasn't Zeus who was running Tartarus. No, it was run separately from him. He can send people there, and it looks like it doesn't always work, like in the case of Sisyphus. It didn't work. I mean, Thanatos was supposed to take Sisyphus and chain him and put him in Tartarus for the rest of his life. I mean, it looks like Sisyphus tricked him and turned the thing around and chained Thanatos and put death in jail somehow, or death in prison. And then of course Zeus intervened and other gods intervened, and then they freed up Thanatos, and then they chained and got really Sisyphus, and that's when Zeus was definitely pissed, and that's it, he said. I mean, your punishment now is to push that rock forever and ever and ever. It's in a pointless so like creating absurdity as a form of punishment is really a creative move that I don't think in Islam or in any kind of monotheistic religion we reach that point of creativity. And the reason is because these stories were written mostly by poets, Greek poets who were really quite creative, and I like that. So what's this all about? This is all about the anti-hero or the anti-god that Zeus was and is. Now, why I mean, there were like some books that came out like a few years ago. Did the Greeks really worship their gods? Whether they did it with faith or not, it looks like, yeah, there were prayers in almost every temple. You have special prayer for the temple of the land or of the city, and for other gods who were involved in your activity, like shipping or I don't know, anything that you do, there is a god in charge of it. So there is a general god that does many things, but then there is also the god of that land or that territory that also you need to seek his help, etc. So, and yes, there are records of Greeks really doing that. I mean, we know from Hindus, I mean, they have like quite a number of their gods in their houses, and they kind of pray to them when they leave or when they come in, and it is definitely likely. Now, the issue here is not about those gods. The issue is that how did Greeks worship a god who is way too human, basically. I mean, how did Greek came up with the idea that they can worship their own images? Now, for monotheistic religions, they came up with a new kind of story, and they said God created us on his image. Therefore, when we worship him, we worship a higher kind of entity, something huge, enormous, omnipresent, omnipotent, etc., 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 who did create and who will take life after the end of whatever, etc. So we created this kind of image that we are an image of an extremely super powerful entity that is good. That is God. Now, Greek, on the other hand, has a number of gods that he worshipped, and as I said, each one has some kind of activities or something that he was doing in charge of, plus each city has its own god that was in charge of their activities, and it is possible that there was an understanding that these gods, even when they are in cities or when they are in charge of specific activities, it doesn't mean or doesn't contradict the fact that there is also one big one that runs the show. And that big one that runs the show is quite often Zeus. Zeus didn't have as many temples as other gods because his activities were somehow high. We do have also some remnant of a possible animal sacrifices and also human sacrifices in one of the temples of Zeus. Now, my question is not about the way people worshipped him or how they did it. My question is that what went in their mind when they were worshipping or praying to a god who, like, let's say 2 nights ago or 3 nights ago, raped one woman, or deceived another city or a whole city by showing up in the form of a swan, for example, or something like that, in order to go get a woman, or by depriving mankind actually of science and knowledge. Why would they do that? And it is really quite impressive, the story of science that Prometheus, basically the fire of knowledge, took to humans. Because for us, for Muslim and everybody else who follows or has some kind of a connection to the Old Testament, we know that our story was really didn't work out well. So Satan or whoever it is didn't lie to Adam and Eve. He really didn't. He told them the truth. It's God who lied. So yeah, I mean, I don't understand how, but Adam and Eve definitely ate that apple and really discovered many things. So why did God deny them that right? And this is exactly how the Greek approach made it more simple and more rational, more human actually. It was, yeah, Zeus didn't want humans to compete with him. He didn't want them to know what he knows. And that's why Prometheus, when he stole that fire and gave it to humans, that's it. Zeus was mad at that. So the story is really clear here. There is a ban on knowledge and on science, like Nietzsche here really developed this idea very well. There was a ban, and Zeus was aware of this ban and wanted it to continue. He did not want us to know. It's not by mistake or something that happens because of a snake or anything like that. No, it was God himself. He decided that we should not know, we should not have access to science, to knowledge, to anything like that. And then comes Prometheus, and then he messes up the whole story and steals that knowledge or that fire of knowledge and give it to humans. And that was definitely why Zeus was upset and angered, and then punished Prometheus. So it's really simple. The idea is really simple and clear. God did not want us to know. When somebody tried to give us that knowledge, God was mad, and so Zeus here acted like a regular ruler of a small kind of city. He had some few things that he controlled, and he didn't want to share it with everybody, which is understandable. I mean, things were really limited. It's not like it's not the age of the internet back then. I mean, few things that were available, and there are even fewer things that were available to rulers. Whatever they are, I mean, the Old Testament really made up this story of finding out that they were naked. I mean, that was stupid. That was a really stupid story that came in the Old Testament. Why would they realize that they were naked? I mean, but knowledge definitely is a good one. Or seeking eternity, like Utnapishtim and the Gilgamesh story, and then the other kind of equivalent of Zeus Sudra. It's really eternity, which also Sisyphus make it clear. And here it's more obvious, and again we are talking about poets here who are creating these stories. And for Sisyphus it was simple. Sisyphus was a bad ruler. Again, it's a ruler that wasn't really respecting and killing guests and stuff like that, didn't respect Zeus' rule, and Zeus was upset. And he sent Thanatos, I won't say the angel of death, he's a god of death or something like that. Anyway, to take Sisyphus, chain him and put him in Tartarus. Sisyphus was smart, tricked Thanatos, and instead of being chained himself, he chained Thanatos and put him in Tartarus. And then there was a big intervention to free that god. In any case, so these are straight messages that are sent. No knowledge for you, and of course I know you don't want to die, but still you need to take it and accept it. Because I made the decision. Me, Zeus, made those decisions. It's clear, there is no kind of hidden message here or story. The message is clear, the story is clear, and then we have a kind of other solution. But again, here we have poets who are smarter than the writers of the Old Testament, who really came up with quite different approach to the whole thing. So I really appreciate that. Now, back to Zeus. Zeus didn't create, had a coup d'etat, killed his father, cheated, raped, lied, deceived, you name it. And on top of all of that, Greeks put him on top, or actually he claimed it, but really Greeks recognized him as the top of the top, the big boss there, and also worshipped him. And it looks, as I said, we have signs that there were animal sacrifices, but also there are some kind of remnant that make us believe that there are also human sacrifices made to Zeus. Now, all this make us also question the fact that humans do not need to worship an omnipresent, omnipowerful, omnipotent God. They can and they are willing to worship gods that look like them. And I do not Um, I mean, I don't think that the monotheistic approach was the only approach possible. And I mentioned it before. I mean, Arabs had some gods that were crooks, some of them that were adulterous. It didn't make any difference to them. The god was not supposed to be the most powerful. So we have this idea of the most powerful, I think myself, came from Akhenaton's, or Akhenaton, as we call him in Arabic. It's from that approach. Akhenaton, at the same time, he really claims that there is one God, Atun, the most powerful, but he also claimed to be himself God. So there is he merged, or the fusion of two types of power, the heavenly power and the political power. And I will here add a small detail. The first surah of the Quran, it's called Al-Fatiha. And in Al-Fatiha we thank God. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Maliki Yawmiddin. Maliki. Okay, we have two readings for this word, Maliki and Maliki. One of the interpretation is that Maliki is the one who owns but doesn't rule, and Maliki is the one who rules but doesn't own. And because we allowed the two readings, God wanted to make sure that he has both, and he's powerful both ways. He owns and rules, and that's why, I mean, some of the interpretation of these two words, why do we have two kind of reading, or reading actually, yes, of and spelling actually, reading and spelling of the word. One of them is Maliki and the second one is Maliki. So we said Maliki is the one who owns but doesn't rule, and Maliki is the one who rules but doesn't own. And God claimed two words in this surah because he wanted to make sure to let us know that he owns and rules. Now, this idea really matches what we think and expect of a monotheistic God. Zeus was the opposite. Zeus didn't own, didn't rule, didn't make anything, had many problems with his wife, with his memory actually. We will find out later that he married Mnemosyne to kind of recreate or reinvent history in his favor. And the muses were actually to serve that purpose. So really, I mean, Zeus not only was a crook, he was aware he was a crook and wanted to fix it somehow or cover it up. And with all of this, Greeks worshipped him. And that is really my point here. Can we worship an anti-god or an anti-hero? Yes. Greece did it and did it successfully. And I don't see why not. Zeus was really quite powerful. Of course, his power deteriorated over time, but that's another story. I explained it by the rise of monotheism at that time, especially with Constantine, was necessary because the empire needed an ideology. So, removing Zeus from the picture was not because the guy wasn't worthy of worship. It was because for political reason, it wasn't really convenient to keep him there in his place. I mean, politically speaking, probably Greeks wondered, how can we keep this god who really doesn't rule, who is not present quite often, and who has really a really bad kind of record, criminal and stuff like that record, plus we don't know, I mean, he has a temper, I mean, we can't really count on him. So this is my take on Zeus, and if it were me, I would love to worship Zeus because that's the only God that can look like me or you or anybody else. And I think that was brave of Greeks to have invented this God, because it was one of the best attempts but humankind to make their gods look like them, instead of making themselves look like something that is really hollow and doesn't have any content or value. Thank you.